We we had a video somewhat involved we did a while back where we had done a review on this V4 magnetic drill, and we were using the annular cutters, and we burnt one of them up because we were cutting hard material and there was no variable speed on that. And that was the one they gave me to try, though. And someone had written in saying that maybe it would hold up if I had used coolant instead of the oil that I was using in that video for cooling. Well, it wouldn't have helped anyway. When you use coolant, if you really, your main thing is to get something cool, then a lot of times a water base works better, which is what they were getting at. But that's a water-based coolant if you can flood it, like on our saw, where we put lots and lots of coolant on there. When you have a small quantity, it doesn't really do that much. The oil that we were using is a high sulfur, high chlorine, old school cutting oil. And usually we use it because it is just, even though it's messy, it's less mess in our shop overall versus spraying water soluble around a lot of times. It doesn't spread as far. It smells worse. But what it does for cooling that a lot of people don't realize is it cools by chemical action. That's why there's chlorine compounds in there. The chlorine comes out in the air and it cools more than water making steam. A lot of people don't realize that, and that's part of what goes on there. The sulfur also does that a little bit, along with giving it an extra ability to slide. The fact that it is lubricant as opposed to, well, even just water is a lubricant too. There's a whole venue of this stuff, and we'll go ahead and cover that a little bit. But the fact that it's a lubricant allows it to keep, just set that here, to keep your cutting. Now, we have another video all about lathe cutting tools, which kind of applies to all cutting tools. But the reality is, when this is cutting and making a chip, right below the cutting edge, there's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. Can you see that? Just the sharp cutting edge, you have that little area just right below it. And right there, if you can lubricate that, you keep the heat down more than just plain pulling the heat away, because it has a high pressure lubricant, and that's why we were using the oil. The way the high sulfur, high chlorine cutting oil. Actually, we had to special order that out of Texas to get the stuff, but I like it. I use it here. It's not common anymore. If you use the lighter, clear, the closest thing you can find in most places in a smaller quantity is dark thread cutting oil. But look on the instructions and see that they didn't just add some kind of color in it, that it actually has a quantity of active sulfur, because that's the big key. It may or may not have the chlorine on some of that, but the active sulfur will help you a lot. I ordered this stuff out of Texas. It's used a lot for people that are really making heavy cuts, building oil-filled drilling bits and things is where it's really used a lot. And so it's a standard thing there. And it's just getting hard to get in a lot of places. But that extra lubrication makes a difference, and that's why I chose to use the oil. I knew there was a good chance when we started that little test that the bit was gonna burn up, that it wasn't gonna hold up. I wanted to see how well it was. I didn't know how good the high-speed steel was. I don't think it's great, but it was okay. We had used a smaller one in that same video and cut a hole through. Again, that was Rockwell C about 42 on the 4140 that we were drilling it through. That wasn't soft steel. And so that makes quite a difference as to what will or will not take a bit out. Now, later on, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a little bit with, I've got some carbide insert annular cutters. I've got a couple of them. Somebody sent me one, just out of the blue, sent me one, thought I should destruct it and show it to everybody, but it really wasn't a size I wanted anyway, so I bought another one that was bigger, that was a size more functional for us to play with. We haven't unwrapped it yet, but we have our other, actually that one I bought. Because like I said on there, they're not that expensive. I figured it was worth buying. This one's variable speed reversing. And so I think that other one, I think the one they sent to me, I think it was reversing. I think we did that with the tapping. I think it reversed, but it just didn't have the variable speed to go down lower. And actually what I plan on doing that one, keep an eye out for it, but what we're going to end up doing is, and I kind of wanted to find a project that made sense, but I'm going to do the crudest, lowest dollar, not using a lathe. I'm just going to use a welder, some bearings, shaft, cutting bit, drill press, tap. You could even use this same drill press, but we'll probably use our other one because I will be lazy since it's easier, our regular little baby drill press. And I'm going to do some line boring. I'm going to do some line boring with this mag drill because I've done a lot of line boring with mag drills, and it's another one of those ones like when I point out these $100 cheap welders from whoever. It's neat to be able to do a lot without spending really big money on tools. I've got some big money tools here, but when you can do things without spending a lot, that's pretty neat too. And that's what I really like about that idea. You've got a drill press here that's under $300, a couple bearings. You're doing $10,000 worth of line boring work for under $1,000 in tools. I mean, it's a realistic thing you can do. You don't have to buy a York. You don't have to buy a Climax. You don't have to buy any of these name brand tools or bars or anything. Yes, they're nice. I have my preferred ones that I like. If I really had time, I would build my own. So far, I have not done that. But, and no, I don't have a Climax here. I've used them before. I've used the Yorks. I've used some copies of the Yorks. I've used a bad copy of a Climax. That was about the worst one I used. For the most part, the line boring I've done is either I'm using my boring mill for the drive for a line boring setup, or I'm using a mag drill as far as stuff that I've owned, that is. Out in the field in other businesses, I've done quite a bit of line boring. And the same thing applies whether you're doing with low dollar tools or high dollar tools, how that's done. But anyway, just quick introduction to that. Let's get back to cutting fluids, lubricants, coolants. If you really just plain need to take the heat away, and if it's something that cuts easy, let's say you're cutting cast iron and you want to kick your speed up without tearing up your bit. Let's say you're cutting brass, just plain water. Just plain water. Some people use water and soap. They say the soap helps to spread it out a little bit. I like the water-soluble oil in with it because it keeps the rust down. That's the big advantage of having the water-soluble mixed with it, is that it keeps the rust down. But water will take your heat away. And the brass is free cutting, cast iron's free cutting. You don't need that lubrication factor. It doesn't matter. The chips just break up and fall off. Now, we've kind of got into another thing we've used quite a bit of the water soluble around here. We just in the process of getting rid of the water soluble out of our radial drill press. On our horizontal mill here, we use the heavy sulfur-based cutting oil. And that works best when you have in mills you're taking a deep cut on and stuff. It gives you a lot of advantage on keeping that going. Another thing that you find with the water-soluble, and the other part of that is synthetics a lot of times, and they really push you into the synthetics when you are doing the atomized. They have a little air blower, and the air blower blows out the water, and they push you in the synthetics in those a lot of times because of rancidity that you get from the soluble oil. As it gets old, it will, fungus and stuff will grow on it. Fungus, mold, whatever, it gets nasty. But the other hand of the synthetics is there's some nasty smells from them. They used to kind of make me sick in places where I was at using them, and they would always tout how using the aerated with an air blower over the straight water, how you got 10 times the amount of cooling out of it. Well, that's pretty phony, really. What you got was you got 10 times as much cooling from the amount of water you were using. But since you're using almost no water, you still get way more cooling by an actual flood system that has a nozzle and puts lots of liquid down. So it was really a phony thing, and you'll see a lot of people still use it. Now, in those applications, there's occasionally a time where it works okay, but a lot of this, you got to play with it and learn what works for you, your situation, like so much of this. I'll go to where I don't use any kind of a lubricant, and I just do the cooling only. I just blow air. Just plain air will give you a lot of cooling, and sometimes that's all you need. Now you have no fuss, no muss with the oil. With any kind of a water-soluble oil or synthetic water-soluble, you just use air. So once in a while, I've had places in here where I've wanted the mist, but it's so minor, and so many places I've had it, I just don't like the stuff in the air. Even when you use the water-soluble, which is a little less nasty to me. That's a personal thing. It's still nasty when it's aerated so much. I don't like it. It bothers my breathing. So that's my big thing I have against it, and the fact that it does not work if you compare it to a flooded system. Yes, when you're putting a half a drop, drip, 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 well, you take a 3/4 inch hose and put a full stream on there. Yeah, I do more per the amount of water, but there's no water essentially compared to a 3/4 inch hose. So now our saw over here, I bring this up because this one we did already change to synthetic, and we've been going to synthetic. You can see some little floaters in there. Those little floaters that are in there are leftovers from the water soluble that was molding. We had this here for dipping those out, and we may still dip them some more, but they're not hurting us. It doesn't have the big scum pond on the whole top of it. So it is nicer. It's staying nicer. It might have a little bit more lubrication to it actually than the water soluble from what I'm seeing in the effect of the saw blade, but I can't say for sure. Now, on the other hand of it though, I absolutely hate this stuff when we have to weld on the parts afterwards. The fumes from it leaves a very, very fine coating, and if it wasn't so much of a bother when we were cutting a lot of these pieces, I'd sort of like to just water them down with plain water, wash it off, and then weld them, but it's just not practical. It's just not practical when we have the stuff here. You don't want to water it down with straight water on the saw, you'll rust the saw. The steel piece itself wouldn't rust to the point to where it would be a problem, but it would be a problem to be able to do it without spraying water around, or we would spend a lot more time moving it. But I hate the smell of this stuff when you're burning through it. It's not nice. The water soluble, if you weld through it, it burns off. It's no different than just normal welding smoke. But this stuff has a nasty smell to it that I don't like. Okay, let's see. There's nothing really. Oh, yes. Like I say, you see the clearish cutting oils that they have, mineral-based clearish cutting oils. Those don't do much. Those don't do much. They don't really lubricate that well. They don't provide extra cooling. They sell them a lot of times because they don't want to have the high sulfur, high chlorine, dark cutting oils. And you'll see that a lot of times for pipe threaders. You have a choice of the clear light oils or the dark oils, and go with the dark oils. Your threading chasers and things on your threading machine, your pipe threader, will hold up a lot longer. They brag about how you can look at it and see your work through it. And yeah, you can look through it a little better, but it's not essential to see what you're doing there. And your dies, your quality of your cut is just a lot better with the dark oil. We get over here, there is magic, absolute magic. And where is our can of magic? Is this the one where we keep our can of magic? Oh, here's some. Okay. This right here, Rapid Tap, does not contain 1,1,1 trichloroethylene. You can go downtown and buy this or Tap Magic or a couple other brands. This is current stuff, and it's not great. It's a little better than the really low-end mineral oil I was talking about. It's not as good as the high sulfur oil, and I've ended up with some cans of this. But if you find the old cans of this that does contain the 1,1,1 trichloroethylene, this is magic. That one's just about empty. This is an old one that's about full, and I covet those when I can find them. The 1,1,1 trichloroethylene, I don't know all of what it does. I know that it runs down into the cut. And the thing where it really becomes magic, and we just save it for when you absolutely need it, since they decided that it was bad and weren't going to make it anymore, is tapping. I have taken that on, not always on a piece of hard steel. A piece of hard steel, it will help. But if you're tapping like, say, a 3/8 to a 1/2 inch tap, fair size tap, in mild steel, and you're pulling along and tapping it and you're feeling it, you put a few drops of this on there and you'll be able to move that tap with one finger. It is absolutely amazing. It's night and day for the load that it takes. The ultra thin solvent that's in there runs in and gets into the place where the cut is taking place, and it causes lots of cooling. I think it was your liver that it kills, and it's probably bad for the ozone. I don't know. Somewhere in here I had a whole gallon of it. I hope I still have that somewhere. But anyway, that stuff is real magic. It is good. Sometimes for aluminum, just use WD-40. You know, one that's actually really good, that gives you a little bit of lubrication and lots of cooling, but you can't use it in too many places, and that is kerosene or diesel. Used to be used a lot for aluminum, but the fire hazard, it's not quite as popular these days as what it used to be, but it does take the heat away very good, and it gives you a little bit of lubrication, keeps things from welding back together. Ah, yes, another one. This one here, anti-seize. This is exactly the kind that we were using. This is silver. I know it's not actually nickel. This contains calcium oxide. The older version that was gray colored was nickel. This is not nickel based anymore. But this stuff right here, we use this for drilling and for tapping both. Where it really, really came in as a plus, we were doing overhead. You're doing overhead drilling. This will stay around the drill bit, and it kind of recycles back in. And it really was amazing. We just used it because it was the only thing we had there. Way better than squirting oil. That was on, I don't know, it was about a 1 3/16 bit, and it was a 26 millimeter tap, something like that, some metric, whatever the drill and tap sizes were. But that was really an impressive thing. They make some stuff called Bowie lube, which the Boeing company that makes airplanes, they have it. It's kind of a wax paste, and they put it on taps and things too. I've used it before. In fact, I bought a bunch of it. I don't know where the sticks are. I bought a bunch of it. This worked better. The anti-seize worked better. It was more expensive. The Bowie lube is actually, even though it's name brand, it's actually, they let it go fairly cheap. It wasn't expensive. But this really did the job. Here's another one of those liquidy cutting oils. Sort of does stuff, but not great. This is CRC True Tap. I bought that because I was out somewhere and needed it. Edge liquid. Yeah, this one, which they used to have one with 1,1,1 trichloroethylene, and it was good, and I know this does not have it. There used to be a real good one. It doesn't say it contains anything. It's, but yeah. At least I don't think it's an old can. I don't actually know where this one came from. It's sealed. It has a UPC. The good stuff won't have a UPC either. It was a long time ago they quit making it. The really good stuff. You can also, like there's times with the dark cutting oil again that I'm talking about, when you use the dark cutting oil, like I had it in a CNC lathe up there, which some people don't think just because I say it's not the best doesn't mean there's one up there which I really like that machine. Unfortunately, its battery is dead, and one of these days we'll have to get the batteries, the memory battery went down. Anyway, in that one there, I wanted to run oil because I wanted something that was going to be stable and would work with multiple metals, but the oil was not flowing into my, I think it was drill bit. The pump wouldn't push it in quick enough with the high sulfur oil. It was too viscous. And so I just used regular, it was AW32 hydraulic oil actually, because that's the cheapest that you can buy, basically a base stock mineral oil with a few additives that aren't going to hurt. And I just cut it down until I got a mix of that did what I wanted. And that's what you get basically if you buy lighter of the dark oil, but it's not really dark black, is they've just put some other mineral oil in it and cut it down. You can buy from some of these places with different percentage. And I forget what the stuff we've got that's really good. It's in the label's on a drum. I don't have a label of it out here. It's out in the snow right now. It's the maximum they had in it. It was like 18% sulfur or something. It was a lot. It was a lot. But then we use it straight sometimes, and then other times we cut it if we want a thinner oil. So it takes care of everything that we need. And because of the hazardous shipping in Alaska, I bought 3 drums when I bought it. We're still on our first drum, but I'm glad I bought it. And there's some threads. This one here, and it's probably not available anymore. I don't know. This one I didn't use for a long time, but where I found this one really handy was for single point threading, especially for Acme threads, because it sprayed on and it was just thick enough where it held onto the thread a little bit better than most of the regular cutting oils. It sprayed out, but it left a film on more like grease than an oil. I doubt I don't know if they still have it, but yeah, the Crown Tap tool. Somebody at a distributor said, we're not going to handle this anymore, and they gave me a case of it a long time ago, and it was a decade before I started using it. Once I did, there's a few things where it is pretty good for. Probably a lot else that I forgot, but just a little overview on cutting fluids. And, you know, sometimes, yeah, just straight water soluble. The big thing why you're using water soluble, the main thing why you're adding to, while some of your synthetics, some water soluble oils, you can mix it thicker, you can get a little bit more lubrication with it, but the big thing is to keep things from rusting. You need a certain percentage so that it doesn't rust. Now, we also use, and it will get changed to probably to the synthetic, but right now it's still on regular soluble oil, is our surface grinder in the other room. Then with your surface grinder, you mix it thinner. If you make it too thick, the oil will penetrate into the wheel too far and make the wheel clog up sooner. You need to have a higher amount of water. So you need it just on the bare edge where it's really mostly water. You can't have very much oil in it or it'll cause trouble with your wheel wanting to clog up and not free out, and then it burns your part and your part starts overheating on the surface instead of cooling and grinding. So
when you cooled with air, were you using compressed air or just like a box fan?
Oh yeah, compressed air. Yeah, I don't think you'd ever get enough. You can cool things for welding, but as far as for machining, I don't think you'd get enough cooling with a box fan. No, it was a regular high pressure air nozzle.
Okay.
just continually blowing at it. And that also sometimes keeps chips and things away from you. A real common one also is you'll use just a little bit of some kind of oil and then add the air. Instead of having atomized, you have some oil, you know, like our dark cutting oil, some oil there that's at the bit, but then you have a little bit of an airstream which keeps the smoke from the cutting oil away from you and adds to the cooling both. So yeah.